Welcome to Slash.media's SourceForge podcast, and thanks for joining us today. I'm your host, Sydney Shepard, here at SourceForge and Slash.media. The SourceForge podcast is where we discuss software and technology with leaders and changemakers in tech. And joining us today, we have Scott Lasseigne, the Vice President of Sales at APS Payroll, a cloud-based HR and payroll platform. Thanks for joining us, Scott.
Thanks a lot for having me, Sydney. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Yeah, same. So to start, could you just introduce yourself to everyone listening and give a little overview of APS Payroll and the solutions that you offer?
Yeah, for sure. So again, like you said, Scott Lasseigne, VP of Sales. I've actually been with APS for about 16 years. And even though I run our department now, I've really held a lot of positions in our sales department, account executive, manager. And so I know a lot about our company. I have a lot of passion for our industry. And I'm very excited to continue to grow APS and get our solution in front of as many customers as possible. So really our solution, just think about it as companies have to manage their workforce, and they have to manage everything from hire to retire. And that could include applicant tracking, digital onboarding, of course, payroll, time and labor management, benefits, performance management, anything that a company needs to manage their workforce, APS provides that solution.
That's awesome. That's wild. You've been there for a very long time. That's cool that you've been in multiple different positions. Like you said, definitely helps you get like a better understanding of the company as a whole. Yeah. That's cool. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'd love to hear a little more about how APS technology streamlines payroll and HR for, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and what would you say makes your platform stand out from the rest?
Yeah, there's a lot of options in our space, and so I think that we have to look at it as why do clients come to APS? And we analyze a lot of data. We look at a lot of reviews out there and what clients are saying, and really there's three main differentiators of how we can streamline payroll and HR processes. And number one, a lot of our clients come to us looking to centralize data. They could have an applicant tracking system. They could have a separate attendance application. Their benefits could be handled by their broker, and they're either growing, scaling, or trying to just manage their workforce more effectively. And so they come to APS to centralize. And also in our space, there are a lot of tech options, like I mentioned, but adoption across our industry is pretty low. Mm-hmm. A lot of companies that we compete with offer a lot, but maybe haven't built their system the most logical way. So employees, they get into it, users get into it, and they can't adopt it. And so it goes from software to shelfware. And then I think the third thing to discuss is that really support is deprioritized or really non-existent in our industry. And so when clients come to APS, they benefit from a single system design so that all of the workforce and the processes flow in this streamlined technology. And that's what really makes us stand out. Our clients can centralize data, they can benefit from a highly adoptable system, and they can be partnered with a company that prioritizes support just as much as we prioritize technology.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's very helpful for, I'm sure, especially the smaller size businesses or, companies who are starting out to have everything in one spot because you're already trying to manage like so many different things when you're getting going.
That's right. It's companies are trying to especially post-COVID to make money, be effective, grow, and you have to manage your workforce. So you really need a system that can make that as easy as possible on the business.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. And kind of going off of that, I know you work with, small to mid-sized businesses, but what type of companies or industries would you say typically get the most value from APS Payroll? And, is there a specific example of a company that, you really impacted?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are industry agnostic. However, over the years, we've found that we really provide a lot of value to certain industries. To name a few, nonprofit organizations, faith-based, certain micro verticals in healthcare, education, manufacturing, and then financial and professional services. those are different industries across the
Hmm.
range of industries within our ICP, but they all have specific needs. And on
Yeah.
top of those needs that are specific to that industry, there's also personas that differ at each organization. So if you look at the data
Hmm.
that we have in our system, Sydney, finance, HR, operations, IT, C-suite, all need to have access to the information in our system, but all have different priorities and objectives.
Yeah,
Uh,
totally.
so not only industries that we work well with, but also the personas within, I think it's important to discuss. And
Yeah.
um, from an example that sticks out in my head, like I mentioned, I've worn a lot of hats. So
Hmm.
I remember as an account executive, I worked trying to get a 500 employee nonprofit organization onto our services. And this company was with a very large publicly traded company. And when you're going from a large public name to more of a bootstrap private boutique company like APS, there can be concerns about risk. And what they found out after getting through implementation, this organization went from a payroll process that took days to a
Hmm.
payroll process that took hours. And they achieved that by, like I mentioned earlier, centralizing workflows and processes into our system and then driving adoption of the software through trench managers and employees. And it's not uncommon for our clients to come to us and say they saved X hours or they went from days to hours. And I think it
Yeah.
goes back to how we know what companies we work well with, and we built a system that allows them to see that efficiency.
That's awesome. Days to hours. That is very, very helpful. I'm sure, I mean, anyone, no matter what industry or position you're in, can understand how busy days and weeks get, just trying to get one task done. And
Right.
I'm just thinking about like certain tasks that I have. If I could shrink that from days to hours, that would just be magical. So,
That's right.
yeah, I'm sure that's a big game changer for them. That's awesome. That's really cool.
Mhm.
And these days, real-time payroll processing and employee access are more important than ever. And how do you guys help companies stay on top of those critical functions?
Yeah, payroll never slows down.
Yeah.
I remember when I first got into this industry, my dad told me, you better not mess with someone's paycheck, right? Because that's something that we all care about. Every single
Yep.
employee of an organization cares that their data is accurate and it's on time. And especially post-pandemic with more of a remote workforce,
Hmm.
employees can be all over the map. And you can work for a company and their corporate might be 6 states away. So I think the main thing, Sydney, is self-serve. The idea of employee self-serve gives employees autonomy, and so they can go look at their pay stub or request PTO or have access to their benefit statement or e-sign a document. They can also be very engaged with the company, and you're providing that autonomy, but you're also providing delegation because for someone to receive an accurate paycheck, there's certain onus on the employee to make sure they're clocking in or requesting the right PTO, e-signing their time card. And
Hmm.
self-serve really is that vehicle that can help get a business to a more efficient state. And also, pay payroll in itself needs to be very flexible. So different states have different pay laws
Yeah.
for end of pay period and first check date or termination pay requirements when you have to get an employee their final pay stub. So we offer our clients a lot of flexibility with the ability to create prepays, unscheduled run, and then a concept called expedited payroll that allows clients to submit a payroll the next day or even same day in certain situations if there's an uh-oh or a fire or maybe a termination that needs to be paid out, for example, in California, same day.
That's awesome. Cool. Yeah. And, in addition to that, um, like for employees going in on kind of on the other side as businesses grow and evolve, their needs for scalability, flexibility, all of that for payroll and HR management tend to change. So how do you help companies adapt to those changing requirements for the people that are in those positions
Yeah,
working on that?
that's a great question. I think that when you provide software and service, if you're not listening to your customer, then you're not continuing to evolve for them.
Yes, totally.
And so, again, we compete with a lot of companies in our space that are very large and publicly traded, and that's fine. That's no knock on them. But the larger the company gets, the further they can get away from their clients. And that's one thing I've been very proud of over my tenure here, is that APS hasn't lost sight of that. So I'll name a few initiatives. Of course, all of our clients can engage with us via their CSAT or NPS responses. So we have surveys within our system. Every time a ticket's closed, there's a survey. Every 90 days, our customers are asked how satisfied they are. And we have a team that takes those responses. And if there are challenges or opportunities, that we have a team that engages those clients specifically to understand how we can be better for them. We also have what we call the Voice of the Customer initiative, where we interview clients within our target industries that you asked about earlier consistently, so that we understand how are we solving their problems, where are we not, and as they're growing and scaling, what do they see that they could benefit from us. We also ask, are you using any other software to manage parts of the workflow? And more often than not, so that we find out that a client is using another software that we have that service for. So we can understand, identify, and we engage our clients through our application and those initiatives to continually meet those needs. And at the end of the day, we are in our own ICP. We're a company around 200 employees in financial and professional services. So we also look at our own use case. Where are we struggling? Where are we? How are we scaling? And what challenges do we see? And so we also use ourselves to understand how we can be better for our clients.
I love that. That's great. I mean, it totally makes sense. I feel like I don't think about that. I'm sure a lot of people don't think about that, but just looking in, you can find little holes to fill. And that's great too. I think there's so many different products or platforms that I've used, where sometimes it's hard to get help or feedback. So that's having that 90-day check-in. That's really a good idea. I mean, for your clients and also for you guys, just to continue to improve.
Yeah. If you lose touch with your client, you're going to lose touch with where they're going. And it's very important for us.
Yeah. And I feel like the more you stay in contact with a client, the better the relationship is.
100%.
Yeah, totally. And you kind of mentioned, some competition and how you guys are a little different. So could you go in a little more detail? Like when you're talking to some potential clients, what are some of the other options that they're considering? And what are some more ways that you guys set yourself apart from that competition?
So in our addressable market, we probably have between 10 and 12 direct competitors. The biggest, the industry giants are going to be, ADP, Paychex, but we also have Paycor, Paycom, Paylocity, and UKG. There are a myriad of technology solutions in our space. And where we differentiate is really our best in breed support structure and our extremely usable and intuitive software. So I like to use an analogy every once in a while. So a car is a car, right? There are many cars out there. There are cars across the spectrum. There are manufacturers that offer different models, but there's a reason. I don't want to offend anybody, but there's a reason that a Toyota or a Honda will outlive a Range Rover. And it's all about the design of the components of the car and how they work together to perform and function properly. And so it's really the same thing in our space, that there are some really good looking and attractive technology offerings in our space. But there is a reason why a lot of our competitors churn at the rate that they do, because when clients get in and they understand the components and how the software actually works, it results in a lackluster experience.
Yeah.
And so it's very common for us to be the vendor that a company chooses to have that long lasting relationship with, because maybe they've seen what how the Range Rover functions, and
Yeah.
and they say I need a really solid and usable tech, but I also want to be heard, and I want to have a voice on the other end of the phone if I have an issue.
Yeah.
And we've built a business on those two pillars.
That's cool. I like that analogy. It makes it very easy to understand. And also, I'm a Toyota girl, so I appreciate that. It's funny. I just was getting something on my car fixed the other day, and the car like repairman was asking me if I'll ever sell my Toyota, and I was like, no, I have no reason to. Like, it's a great car; it'll last forever.
That's
So
that's
I
right.
I very much so relate to that.
Yeah, we could just nerd out on Toyotas. I have a 4Runner now, very pro,
Nice.
and last year my son turned 16, and I gave him my 2006 4Runner, and
Nice.
I expect them both to last a very long time because
Yeah.
they're built the right way, and
Yeah.
it's a very easy analogy to understand. Would I love
Hmm.
to own a Range Rover? Absolutely, it's a very cool car. But I know that my
Yeah.
Toyota is going to outlive it and give
Yeah.
me less headache.
Yeah. Nice and reliable. I love that. That's cool. Toyota. Love it. Um, back to, I guess, the topic
The
here.
topic at hand, right?
Yeah. How would you say that the payroll, HR services, software industry as a whole is evolving, and how might that impact some of your customers? And are there emerging trends that you see that small and mid-sized businesses should be preparing for?
Yeah, absolutely. I've mentioned the term post-pandemic a few times, and
Yeah,
it really has impacted our industry significantly. It's impacted
yeah,
everyone, right? And post-pandemic companies they're more remote, they're more diverse. At the same time, they're more lean. You've heard all the reports of layoffs and tech layoffs, and companies are really forced to do more with less.
yeah,
And at the same time, they're also managing a much more challenging workforce. So I talked about personas earlier. So you have finance and you have HR as your primary personas using a system like APS.
hmm,
And really what we've seen is that those two personas are needing to align priorities rather than being on separate sides of the fence. It used to be that finance cared what they care about and HR cared what they care about, and those often didn't align because
yeah,
they often have different objectives. But now we've seen finance and HR needing to align priorities to make productive business decisions. And at the end of the day, the data in our system is very critical, and it's usable for companies to make better financial and HR business decisions that keep the
hmm,
company in good standing, allow companies to grow and scale. At the same time, we know we all use AI, and really 12 months ago, from an HR perspective, AI was feared. Um, Honestly, AI was looked at initially by HR professionals as a threat to the HR component in general.
mm,
But
yeah,
now we talk about HR and how it can help streamline, job descriptions, or it can provide insight into performance review trends.
yeah,
It's welcomed, and that data is allowing HR to make better decisions that keeps finance happy because we're keeping our margins and our labor costs in line. So I've
yeah.
seen a lot of alignment, and it's been encouraging because now we can get finance and HR on the same page and work towards a similar goal.
That's cool. Yeah. I feel like every conversation that I have about software, AI comes up in some way, shape, or form. Um, and it definitely, yeah, it is very helpful. I've said this before and I'll continue to say it. I feel like it can help anybody in any different position or industry in some way if you welcome it. Like
Yeah.
you can definitely take it and use it to your advantage. So that's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we all have to make that disclaimer joke that this is about to take my job, but I'm going to use it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
But again,
Exactly.
I think that AI can help us make more informed decisions. And that's like,
Hmm.
again, I'll go back to the data in our system. We store
Yeah.
a lot of data in our system. And so it makes sense for us to serve up our clients these actionable insights so that they can
Yeah.
go have tougher conversations, grow and scale it appropriately, and the AI is just summarizing some trends or analysis that they need to go and action on.
Yeah, totally. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah. And also you mentioned remote work, and the rise of flexible workforce and gig economy are shaking things up these days, as you talked about post pandemic. So how do you see the role of payroll and HR management software evolving in that context, excuse me? And
Yeah, so it's definitely not uncommon to see this trend as of late, but we've seen
yeah,
this in our target industries for years. Again, going back to financial professional services, nonprofit organizations, faith-based healthcare, there has
yeah,
historically been a need to track and engage workers that aren't traditional W-2. So working so in depth with our verticals prior to this evolution, APS already has a mature software for this trend. So we're going to
nice.
continue to prioritize non-traditional staff and how our clients continue to centralize data within our system. Goes back to centralizing data into a single engine. It goes back to self-serve. And since we built 95% of our technology, we can be very flexible to the trends in the workforce as they evolve over time.
Nice. That's very helpful that you already kind of had that incorporated before the change began. That's very nice and helpful for you guys, and also for people who were quickly looking for something that could help them in that area. Yeah, so that obviously sets you guys apart, and the industry is becoming more competitive as time goes on. So how else, if there's other ways, does APS stay ahead of the curve in terms of innovation and customer satisfaction? I know you
Yes.
touched a little bit on it earlier, but if you want to expand on that some more.
Yeah, and I can definitely expand on it further. When I got into this industry, we had two main competitors. It was ADP and Paychex. And
Yeah.
really, if you look at our addressable market, we probably have 10 to 12 competitors, but the HCM space is very hot. I think that there are probably 8 other competitors that we could look at if we're talking about the sub 25 employee um, addressable market. So the market has historically, in the past 5 to 7 years, grown via acquisition and merger. So what this results in, going back to my analogy earlier, is that there is an array of solutions offered by our competitors. You could have product offering that includes the employee life cycle, but also some fringe software offerings that our competitors are adding to their portfolio to try to increase their addressable market. And it intensifies the existing problem that a lot of our competitors were pieced together with different software components. So the features offered by our competitors has increased the demand for our services in general. But I have to go back to the Toyota versus Range Rover analogy.
Yeah.
Um, some things are just trends, and it doesn't make sense to acquire a company and piece it together to your software to try to make it work for your customer.
Yeah.
I think we stay ahead of the curve in terms of innovation and customer satisfaction by some of the items I mentioned earlier. Continuing to prioritize best in breed service and technology, conducting those voice of the customer interviews,
Yeah.
engaging our clients. Cindy, every time we release a new feature, we put it into what we call early access, and our clients can test out and try these features.
Nice.
And when they do so, they tell us what they hope to accomplish when they turn it on.
Mm-hmm.
And we're able to aggregate all of this client feedback and listen to our customers, and that's how we continually meet their needs. So again, going back to why do customers go out to market? They go out to market because they need to centralize, they need a better adoptable system. And why do they choose APS? They choose APS because they realize that through our offering.
That's great. Like I said before, listening to your customers and adapting is wonderful. Can't really say much more than that, but that's great. That's awesome.
That's right.
Yeah. And if you could share a piece of advice, like one key piece of advice for a potential customer, what would that be? What do you wish that more businesses understood about managing their payroll and HR services?
I love this question. I would say understand the company that you're going to engage with. So what does that mean? Our software, when a company goes out and engages an HCM platform, that software will be utilized by every single employee of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
From the employee, they're going to, again, view their pay stub, clock in, request PTO, go through a performance evaluation. Not only that, but there are personas and stakeholders that need access to the data in our system. So bring stakeholders to the pre-sales conversations. Speak with references. Read reviews of other clients in your specific industry or for, controllers like you.
Yeah.
I definitely suggest going way further than sales conversations and vanilla demos. I suggest working sessions with stakeholders, going through the actual problems that a company wants to solve, and don't make a decision in a silo. Read reviews, speak with references, and make sure that you ask about the support model, retention, overall satisfaction. Talk to new clients. Talk to clients that have been with the company for 5 years so you can get the understanding of how have they taken care of you for 5 years, and if you're new, what was implementation like?
Yeah, love it. You guys heard it. That's the key piece of advice.
That's right.
Cool. And switching gears a little bit, but supporting a distributed workforce comes with unique compliance challenges. So how does APS Payroll help companies navigate that complexity across multiple locations?
So interesting enough, around 60% of our ARR, so 60% of our revenue is associated with our clients that have multiple EINs and locations. Wow. So bottom line is the majority of our clients have a remote workforce and or multi-location.
Yeah.
And so we are solving that problem for the majority of our clients today. And I think about a few things. One, user security permissions, allowing delegation and autonomy with guardrails. I mentioned self-serve earlier from an employee perspective, but self-serve functions as our employee and manager/director solution. So it's not best practice to give different either location managers or regional directors access to all the data in our system. It makes sense to give them access to the information they need to see and to streamline the workflows that they're responsible for.
Yeah.
So we accomplish that through our security permissions and through self-serve, so we can open up the lanes that our companies, that our clients need to travel in. And as they're managing multiple locations, multiple states, they're seeing what they need to see, and they're not distracted by what's not important to them. So our successful clients empower users in self-serve to manage locations and regions very efficiently.
Nice. That's awesome. That helps keep things nice and easy, I'm sure, for, like you've talked about, for people to just log in and understand exactly what they're looking at and what they need to see.
That's right. And cool. I'll say that our mission statement at APS is to make payroll and HR easier, and easier is a key word. Our president said we chose that instead of making payroll and HR easy because it's never easy. There's a lot to managing the workforce.
Yeah.
But our aim is to make it easier, more streamlined, and more effective so that our clients are, of course, satisfied with us, but also able to spend an appropriate amount of tactical time leveraging our technology so they can spend more time being strategic and helping the business grow.
I love that. Easier. That's great. Yeah. And, another thing that is becoming very important to companies is, companies are putting a more increased emphasis on employee well-being and engagement. So how do payroll HR solutions like yours help companies better support their workforce in that way too?
Yeah, it's a great question, and both generationally and through the more remote workforce, there is a need to make sure that employees are satisfied and that they're productive. And so there's the kind of the trendy conversation, and I think the more tangible conversation. So
Yeah.
In to make employees feel engaged, self-serve has evolved over the years. It started off as a way just for employees to clock in and look at their pay stub, but now our clients benefit from items like a news feed, a daily digest email that shows managers' birthdays and anniversaries for team shoutouts. We've also leveraged text message engagement through our system so that our users can send text message for maybe things like inclement weather or just shout outs or company events. But if I look at the more tangible side, there's an offering within our system called workforce planning. And what workforce planning is, it's really a pillar of our software. And workforce planning allows our clients to understand trends and analysis that might lead to flight risk or dissatisfied and unproductive employees. So for example, we can take data around performance reviews, pay inequality, PTO trends, and we can essentially leverage to our users, hey, you may want to engage this group of employees. We've seen a downtrend in their performance. This employee is more on your higher paid but lower performance scale, so there's some disparity there. There may be some pay inequality right here with this specific department. So where we find more value is serving up that analysis to our clients so that they can have tangible engagement rather than maybe, a brag board or giving someone a gold star.
Yeah.
But we try to marry both, and I hope that I'm making sense.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. I like how you split that up into kind of two different sections or areas, because both I think are important. And I think going on your first point, especially these days with a lot of remote employees and stuff, people do really look to kind of that culture and how, the engagement is within the employees.
Right.
And then also having all of that information that comes up, like you said, being able to identify where there's little gaps between performance versus, all those different things that you touched on, the pay gap, all that stuff. That's very useful for the, management side looking at things. So
that's right.
It makes a lot of sense. And those are very, very important things.
Yeah. I mean, I'll tell you, even as an employee here, my leaders get insight into anniversaries, and I love the shout out. So, there is a huge component to recognition of staff.
Yes.
You need to make sure your company honors, respects your service to them. And we love those solutions because our clients can stay engaged. I think from the analytics perspective, our system can essentially tell our customers information you're not going to get by surveys. We're going to see the data and the trends, and that's what's really been shown as actionable.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. That's super cool. So this kind of could maybe tie back to what we talked about a little bit earlier, but for, a small to mid-sized business considering a solution, what are the key factors that they should consider to ensure that they choose the right platform for them specifically?
Right. So I would say solicit pain points from all the teams affected by this change. So if you're unhappy with your current vendor, you're looking to switch, or maybe you're going to use an HCM for the first time, as I mentioned earlier, every employee will use this system, and different personas have different priorities. So I would say solicit the pain points and the objectives from all the teams affected by the change. And then secondly, make sure you understand how the solution will work and how it will work for those stakeholders. So don't just rely on the fact that company X offers this feature. Prioritize working sessions. Any vendor in our space would love to have working sessions and show how the system works. But I would highly recommend understanding the pain points and bringing those stakeholders to the pre-sales conversation. And in addition, understand, wish I could say this with in all caps, understand what implementation looks like. Um, the pain to implement a system has to be lower than the pain of not making the change.
Yeah.
But no one likes to go through implementation. Often has a level of anxiety associated with it. So we highly suggest asking the different companies you're looking at, what does it look like to implement? How will the data be transitioned? Is there
Yeah.
parallel testing involved? What does the company build look like? How do you train my users? How do you guarantee adoption? And seeing what happens after you say yes and sign is very, very important to understand, okay, will this company set me up for success in implementation, or will I sign with the sales team and then I'm just on my own?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, those are definitely good points to think about. And as companies are focusing more on personalized and streamlined employee experiences, how does APS facilitate the creation of tailored payroll HR services across different locations and employee types? I know you've kind of touched on the different employee types, but if you want to expand some more.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the bottom line is it goes back to self-serve, and
Yeah.
you probably understand that the payroll process never stops. It's cyclical, right? A pay period starts, you've got attendance, you got PTO requests, you have new hires, you have open enrollment, there's a break, the payroll's process that starts over again. And so, I think companies have to understand when they're using a software, can you set up the process and workflows and access at the corporate level that logically flow down to self-serve? And if you can do that effectively and you can grant access to different teams and users, then you can have a very streamlined process. If
Yeah.
on the other hand, there's different software systems like pieced together, and it's not going to result in streamlined employee experiences. It's going to result in
Yeah.
frustration. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to beat the dead horse too much more, but a Toyota runs because it was designed the right way. And some other car companies out there, maybe they look really nice, but they'll be in the shop, 6 times in your first year. And when every employee is affected by the HCM company that's in place, those complaints can be amplified, and there can be a lot of wasted spend because, to be transparent, our services they're not cheap, right? And we're in the market or the price range of all of our competitors, but you don't want to make the wrong decision, have unhappy employees, unhappy stakeholders, and you're spending X amount per month.
Yeah.
So again, it goes back to just being very diligent in the pre-sales process and understanding what company you're working with.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And to kind of start to wrap this up, looking ahead, do you guys have any exciting new developments or anything we can expect, from APS Payroll? Any new products, features, major updates, that sort of thing?
Well, we're constantly evolving. And really at APS, we're focused on enhancing our user experience by going back to our mission statement. We want to make payroll and HR easier. And so we're always exploring new ideas and innovations to make day-to-day interactions with our technology efficient and intuitive. So we do have some exciting updates in the works, and we can't wait to share what's coming. So I would say just stay tuned.
Okay, so it's not released yet then to come.
Yeah, the great thing about APS, well, one of the great things is that since we own our technology, we're constantly evolving it because we want to be the best out there. And
Totally.
I'm proud to work for a company that hasn't just said, hey, we've got a great system, let's go on autopilot. No.
Yeah.
The needs are changing, the market's evolving, and we want to be there to support our clients as they grow and just manage today's workforce.
Awesome. That's great. And for people listening and who are interested in learning more about APS Payroll, and then also, keeping an eye out for those updates to come, where can they find some more information online?
Absolutely. So our website, www.apspayroll.com. You can click contact us and get added to our marketing email list. You can also subscribe to our blog and get notified. We're also on social, so if you follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter/X, we highlight our product advancements and just where we are as a company, how we're helping clients in those key industries. And I'd love to connect with any of the listeners out there that want to learn more.
That's awesome. Great. Well, thank you so much for your time and just talking about APS Payroll, teaching us a little bit more about what you guys do in the industry as a whole. And thank you all for listening to the Slash.media SourceForge podcast. Make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with all the upcoming B2B podcasts that we have for you.
Thanks, Sydney.
Yeah, thank you.